before customs, or the general rule says the following: no merchandise shall be released before examination takes place and before the merchandise is secured by the bond, and or before merchandise is secured by bond. And then of course there are lots of exceptions which can eat the rules depending on your value, depending on the type of merchandise, depending on the type of entry. Think about the triangle. Here is customs, CBP. Here is importer, person responsible for the goods, and here is surety. What's surety? Surety is have anyone used the word sure? I assure you. I give you assurances. Well, that's what surety does. They give assurances. And then, since we're talking about the bonds, what type of assurances they'll do? They will give assurances that in case this stuff is not labeled, and I say, who cares, and walk away, the customer says, well, remember you said I assure. Well, guess what? Your assurances did not work, so give us the money. So, in other words, it's a third person, third entity, which is responsible if I make mistakes and I don't live up, and do not pay for those mistakes. The surety will pay up the bill. Purposes of the bond are to protect the revenue and ensure compliance. Don't forget that. It's not to punish, it's to make sure that you follow the rules. The rules of the game are the Code of Federal Regulations, and if you follow them, you should have no problem. In case there are problems, there is a bond. Very important form that you shall see throughout your journey when learning about bonds is a CBP form 301, and you can see this here, the CBP form Customs and Border Protection, CBP form 301, and this is just a form which says, Customs, I would like to post a bond, and here is the form, please give me that bond. So we learn that bond depends on entry. The entries that we heard, we didn't talk about them extensively except for the immediate transportation, but we covered them somewhat. Would include entry such as consumption. We did talk a little bit about anti-dumping countervailing type entry. We did talk a little bit about, well, we haven't, we've done it for the homework, but immediate transportation without appraisement entry. We talked about importation and exportation entry. We talked about drawback entry, first class, when I was talking about the circumvention principle. I think I briefly mentioned when I was discussing the surety, I briefly mentioned the informal entry, and we shall have bigger discussion on that. Bond can be waived, meaning no bond is required. And that times, of course, depends on the type of merchandise and on type of importer. So let's see. Port director, the guy who is responsible for, on the government side, for importer in having a bond, it says may waive the requirement. May waive. He can, but he doesn't have to, or she doesn't have to. For surety, so there can be, the surety is not required, or cash deposit. Remember the anti-dumping duty, cash deposit. So sometimes cash deposit is required, and not only in the case of anti-dumping, but let's say you fail to pay your duties on numerous times, timely. your credit rating went down because you have a bad credit score with customs. I'm not talking about fair ISAC credit rating score, I'm talking about the customs one. Then you're not trustworthy individual or trustworthy company, and this means that, guess what? Instead of the bond, I'm gonna require a cash deposit. Principal, the question is, who can the principal be as far as entity is concerned? The question is, can an individual act as a principal? And the answer is probably yes. Not probably, yes, they can act as a principal. Another name for those individuals which can come up on a customs broker exam is sole proprietor. In other words, whatever I do it as myself. No tricks, no strings attached. You see me, you can touch me, you can feel me. I am me, I am making an import. But there are other types of entities that take place in a world of customs broker exam, as far as bonds are concerned and as far as other things are concerned. And what can those entities be? Well, here they are. They're listed right there as partnerships and corporations. How does it play out on the customs broker exam? As follows. So customs examiners give you the fact pattern. They say, you, licensed customs broker, would like to prepare a customs bond for the following entities, and you have the entities. You have Webster Computer, and notice unincorporated division of Sam's Webster Group. So they are subgroup of Sam's Webster. Then they have Allen Cooking Service, a LLP, and they are what? LLP with what? They're LLP with Green Wares. We have Green Wares, which is also LLP. Then we have Allen Green, which is individual, and we have a corporation. So the question goes such as follows. Based on this information, which is not correct? And if you go through the answer choice, you see co-principal, 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 and you're looking for the false answer. So how do you answer that? So it's up to you how you want to sketch it, but it would be helpful for you to identify the legal entities which are the same. So you have Webster Computer, an unincorporated division of Sam Webster Group. So you might remember the pizza place and Walmart. So you have pizza place and Walmart. They're same legal entity, one legal entity. It's kind of like being merged together. So here we have Webster. No. We have Sam Webster. And underneath it, which is the same entity, is Webster Computer. This section, as you can see, I jumped all the way back to the regulation. So I'm jumping back and forth. I jumped almost to the end of the section because part 113 has a lot of sections in it. Because this particular section has been tested more frequently than others. There are others, but the basic takeaway from this section is to know what conditions, and if you don't live up to those conditions, what will happen monetarily. And next, outside of ITC, the other agencies, whenever they get involved, the bond amount for them is usually set at 3 times of, and this is important, total entered value of merchandise. So it would not be the bond amount of total entered value plus taxes plus fees plus duties. It would be just total entered value. That would be the bond amount 3 times. And there are it's a two-pronged test. First, the merchandise must be within the jurisdiction. And the second test is failure to redeliver could pose a threat to public health and safety. So when now of course, which one is more definitive than the other? This one is more sure. Merchandise falls under within the jurisdiction of some agency. This is usually given, but it also must pose a threat to the public health and safety. And of course, when you're out there negotiating the bond amount, and the port director comes to you and says, well, your bond amount should be this because it's within the jurisdiction, you can say, well, it's not posing a failure to redeliver could not possibly cause a threat to public health and safety because, and you list your reasons.